But I mean, ultimately, I say these things, and I just haven't performed the way that I would like to, and that's on me. And um, like I said, as a core member of this team, I got to be better. And
Cal, we could be in any locker room right now, but today it is just strictly safety. We've got a heat advisory outside here at Dodger Stadium. So my number one rule is do not roast the catcher. You've got to be ready to go today.
Yeah, AC is preferred. So.
AC is preferred. Impressions of playing at Dodger Stadium?
It's my second time here. This is like, I think everywhere you go is the big leagues, but here it's like, it's very big league. It's top tier, lots of fans, very good team, big market. You got the history. It's a little bit of everything. So, very cool place to play. Like I said, all those other things kind of add up to it. It makes it, the upper echelon of, big league ballparks and stadiums and places to play.
Does it sound different out there? 50,000 on a Tuesday night game?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it feels like a big game. It feels like a big atmosphere. Almost has that playoff kind of atmosphere vibe to it, and you add in the super loud sound system they got out there. It's just you can feel that thing, from a mile away. It feels like
you should feel it up in the broadcast booth. It actually goes straight into the booth.
Yeah, it's loud.
It is loud. It is loud. I mentioned I grabbed you coming off the field for the walk-off interview, and I've done that many times, and I've really been curious because your heartbeat is just, you would never know talking to you after most games that you have just caught 9 innings, that it might be a game that you were winning on a razor-thin wire. You are very much the same. And I've never really heard you your players talk about, I do breathing exercises, or, I do this kind of check, or I've read books, or I've talked to people. How have you been able to maintain that calm in those situations?
Yeah, I mean, I think in those situations, realizing that, you got 8 other guys and looking at you and, really putting off confidence, really putting off a sense of calmness and focus is important all the time. Doesn't matter if it's a big moment or not. You want to put out good body energy or, body language and good energy. And I just think that's important being a catcher. And like I said, trying to instill confidence and a sense of calmness to the pitcher and the rest of the position players, because, you still have a job at hand. You got to focus and be under control. You don't want to be, too amped up. You don't want to be too low. You want to be in that happy medium, and that's what I try to be in.
Meanwhile, you're catching pitches 103 miles an hour, and it was funny because Dan talked about the Max Muncy at bat, and it turned out to a walk, but that was kind of just very good pitcher on top of his game, a very good hitter fouling off pitches. What did you see in that at bat?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta give him credit. Max Muncy's a really good player. I think, he continues to do it year in and year out, and has a good approach, and he's been around for a while, veteran guy. So you got to give him credit. Sometimes you got to tip the hat. I think, realizing that hitters get paid to do it too. So not always the pitcher that ends up on top. So, but give him credit, and ultimately, we had the base open as well too, so we didn't have to necessarily give in. Obviously, you want to get him out in that time, right? But understanding that a walk in that situation or making him hit your pitch is not the worst thing in the world, and ultimately you have somebody on deck, and but yeah, that's just all part of the X's and O's.
It was an absolutely electric moment that was part of a great win, and I think my question is right now, and a lot of people are asking, you have the DeGrom win, you have the win on Tuesday night here, you have the 2 games in between, and that seems to be where you guys have been for a little while. How do you look at where the club is and how you get to where you want to have some more of that consistency?
Yeah, it is frustrating when you can't, put it all together, and But that's baseball, right? I think ultimately, you know, it's just bringing that same kind of level of focus and that same energy every single day. Understanding that you might not get the result you want, but I think if you can, bring that same level of focus and attention to detail every single day with small things like that, then we can find a way to muster up some more wins and muster up some winning streaks like that. So, just gotta, I know it's a team sport. One night it's pitching, the other night it's hitting, the other night it's defense, and it's just important in all three of those aspects to be ready every single night, knowing that one might not be there as much on any given night, but knowing that we might have to raise our elevator game in a certain area on another night. So just got to continue to hammer home on the little things and that attention to detail.
Where you are right now, 2.5 games out with about 2 months to play, that's not a terrible place to be. You've still got everything in front of you, but you want to feel that consistency, I imagine, going in. You want to get to a point where we are seeing more games like we saw on Tuesday, and 8-game winning streak, which was a little while ago now. We've seen that this club can do it. How do you evaluate where you are in getting to that?
Yeah, I think overall, ultimately, like you said, we're still in the hunt, but we're not that we don't need to use that as a crutch or use that as keep using that as an excuse. We need to almost take the bull by the horns and start uh, you know putting our foot down and start winning baseball games more regularly and doing things like that. And I think it starts honestly with just the core group of guys we have. I think us starting to play a little better and starting to have that, like I said, level of focus and keep pounding away, not giving up at bats, not giving up on pitches, not letting the pitcher off the hook, things like that. I think that's ultimately kind of what we're looking at because we have the talent, we have all that, but we just gotta like I said, it's the little nuances in the game that are sometimes repetitive or could be cliche, but those are real things, little things. Uh, doing the right things in the box, playing the right way, playing a full 9 innings. So, like I said, those are cliche things that you hear a lot, but it's ultimately just about doing those little things because if you repeatedly do those right over and over, ultimately, you get what you are trying to do.
And that's how you try and play your game, too. That sounds like a lot of things that we've talked about last year in particular. It's the consistency in focusing on those little things. And I know you do that anyway, but where are you right now as far as what you are doing at the plate?
Yeah, I'm trying to simplify it as much as I can, trying to have good at bats, square the ball up, swing at good pitches, and really letting the rest take care of itself, and just trying to play the game the right way. I'm trying to trying to do what the game's telling me to do, trying to ultimately let the game reward me, by sacrificing and doing things that I need to do, and but I mean ultimately I say these things and I just haven't performed the way that I would like to, and that's on me. And like I said, as a core member of this team, I got to be better, and I know other guys in that clubhouse would agree with that I do need to be better, and that they might as well. And I think everybody feels that way. They feel like they could help the team out a little more, and I think that's just the nature of being a baseball player. And but like I said, I think that just raising that level of focus and trying to find a way to grind it out and just try to help the team win any way that I can. I think ultimately can get you in a better spot rather than trying to focus on yourself or trying to get to a certain place with your swing or anything like that.
Okay, so you said simplify it. Is that kind of you put out of your mind that I'm trying to do this with my swing or that with my swing? I mean, how close to see ball, hit ball are you right now, and how close are you to, well, I could work on this a little bit? And you understand that, well, maybe this isn't happening because of this.
Yeah, I think ultimately, I thought I've had some decent at bats, squaring some balls up, just missing them a little bit, and ultimately, it's just about staying with it. It's not about. I think we can all fall victim to trying to change your swing or trying to change your mechanics or change your approach or change this or that, and you start trying harder and you start pressing more and you start. It's kind of a vicious cycle, and to me, it's really just about coming out of that cycle and really just focusing on what can I do today? How can we get a win today? How can I help this team? And usually, when you're focused on that, you stop worrying about yourself or stop worrying about pressing or trying too hard. Then good things happen. But it's easier said than done, right? I think everybody tries hard. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to do it. And baseball is unfortunately one of those sports where you can't just run faster. You can't just try harder. You can't swing harder. You can't throw it harder, and get the result that you want like you could in basketball or football. It's has a little more mental aspect to it too. So really being mentally disciplined and focused is kind of a key in the sport of baseball. So
Yeah, and it's hard when it's 162.
it's hard. It's hard. So it's the hardest thing to do in all of baseball. So and if it was easy, everybody would do it, and it's not. I mean, that's why you see so many people fail. And I think if you saw a quarterback, complete 3 out of 10 passes, you've heard it before, right? I mean, he'd be on the bench.
Yeah.
The guy makes 30% from the field. In basketball, he probably is not playing very much, but in baseball, 3 out of 10 is some of the best players in the world. So it's a hard sport. You got to learn to deal with failure and be able to make those adjustments quickly.
Yeah. What have we seen an adjustment team-wise? The 5 home run game, you look at that, and I've heard a couple of guys talk about our identity is hitting the ball hard and hitting the home run, hitting more of the home run. Has there been an effort or any kind of change in approach in getting back to that?
I mean, I think there's 2 thoughts, right? Like there's who you're built as a team. What do we do well? What does each guy do well? And then there's also how do we want to approach the game and how do we want to be viewed identity wise? And some guys are meant to hit the long ball or hit the gaps, hit the ball hard, and there's other guys that are meant to try to get on base, maybe take some more pitches, maybe be a little more selective, maybe take their singles, and ultimately I think you gotta understand which bucket you fall in and really try to lean into who you are and ultimately it's always a fine line. You don't want to tell somebody to go up there and try to hit home runs because usually that results in bigger swings, longer swings, and slows your swing down, and ultimately you get too big and you don't get the results you want. And so it's a fine line, understanding who you are and what you do well, but knowing what makes you go and what approach kind of you need to have in order to get the most out of yourself.
Do you think everybody is where they need to be, and I'm this guy or that guy?
I think it's constantly evolving throughout a season. I think you're going to see some guys who are right where they need to be at a certain time of year, and you're going to see some guys who maybe, trying to find it a little bit in the box, and ultimately, trying to find it's a really hard thing to do. I think that's why you got to know yourself, and you have to know, who you are, what makes you a good baseball player, and really lean into that and understand that. All right, this is what I do well. This is what I need to do to help the team win. While also kind of contrasting that into game situations and trying to get the most out of that because we need to score as many runs as we can.
Yeah. One of the things I've seen, it seems like, I don't want to say the game's been put in motion, but we've seen guys looking for that extra base, it seems like, even a little bit more right now. I think people would look at that and say, okay, we're turning it up a little bit. That's a little bit of urgency right there. How do you see that? Do you see you guys doing that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think base running is one of those things that can go by the wayside sometimes, and finding ways to score more runs and take extra bases, and that can kind of kickstart a team, kickstart offense, kickstart a big inning, and I think that's important. I think ultimately you don't want to be a team that can just go station to station, taking one base at a time. You want to push the envelope. You want to put the pressure on the other team. You want to make them make a play, and sometimes they're going to make a play, and we're going to make it out on the bases. But I think as long as we're being prepared and being aggressive on the base pass, I think that's an important thing. And like I said, keep trying to push that envelope and trying to force the hand of the other team.
What's it like in the clubhouse right now this time of year? It's trade deadline, and I know that I've talked to guys that maybe they've heard their names, and I've talked to, not this year, but in the past, talked to guys that their name is nowhere near, there's no shot they're getting traded, but they're worried that they're getting traded. What is this week like in general?
Honestly, it's just a distraction. I think, we were talking about it before. We're just in a day and age where social media and everybody now has a camera and everybody's a reporter and has their own theories on. But ultimately, I always tell guys not to pay attention to that stuff because, I think almost well over half the things you see on the internet aren't even close to true. So we don't know what's going to happen. Ultimately, whatever happens, but you can't focus on it. I think the best thing to do is just put the phone away, put all the stuff down, and just focus on yourself and focus on the team. What can we do today? And if something happens, it happens. It's out of our control. There's nothing really you can do, so there's no sense in worrying about it. But yeah, I think everybody, is, every team, every player in the league, it becomes a distraction this time of year. So.
No, it's human, so absolutely.
It is. So
absolutely. So you're looking forward to that day, that deadline passing.
Yeah. So I think, you've been through a few of them, understanding the more you try to figure out what's going to happen, the more distracted you get and the less you actually even know in general. So it's not good to sit there and try to play, play GM or play, look into your crystal ball and try to figure out because nobody knows what's going to happen. So
now you've done that before, though. You're not about trade deadlines, but you're what's going on in the minor leagues. You follow a lot of the organization and.
Oh yeah, you follow throughout the org and see how the guys are doing, and that's important. You want to see how guys are doing down there and how the future is going to look, and ultimately you want to keep up with the organization that you're committed to.
But you don't want to dip into I'm going to be a trader now.
No, that's not my job. My job is to catch and play baseball. So I'll leave that to the professionals.
Cal, thank you. This is an interesting time for the club, and I appreciate you letting us in a little bit.
Of course.